Episode 7 The Nameless Veil. Prologue, The Dawnless Crossing. There was no sky here. Only a breathless membrane stretched across a horizon that did not exist, soft as fog, sharp as broken mirrors. No sun. No moon. Just the slow drift of lightless color, bleeding through what might have been air or thought or the dream of both. They had crossed. Aldric felt it first, not with eyes, nor skin, but the deeper marrow of his soul. Something had peeled back the pages of time, and now they stood in a chapter that had never been written. The path behind was closed. The world ahead waited, unwatched and unclaimed. The garden of first light was gone. Only echo remained. Around him, the others stirred in slow wonder and fear. Evelyn knelt beside a pillar of breathless shadow, her frost cloak fading into blue mist. Sabrine clutched her dream crystal to her chest, her wide eyes reflecting impossible geometries. Brockries turned a circle slowly, hammer in hand, ready to forge sense into chaos. Ethoria, her ember-lit gaze flickering, whispered the names of constellations she no longer recognized. And Kaelin, wingless now, stood with hands trembling, murmuring prayers from a sky that would not answer. The ground beneath them was not stone. It was memory. Soft. Shifting. Some parts crunched with ash. Others pulsed with heat, like a heartbeat too slow to survive. Trees without bark, leaves made of woven glass, beasts that shimmered and forgot their shape when watched. This was the threshold no prophecy had dared to name. Aldric turned to the group. This is not a world. It's a wound. No one spoke. Somewhere, distant and deep, a bell rang. But it didn't end. The sound bent and curled, spilling through every part of them. A memory of mourning from a cathedral that had never been built. They walked forward, into a silence so old it had forgotten what silence meant. Behind them, their footprints flickered, and vanished. Chapter 1, The Path of Unmaking. They walked across a forest that had no roots. Each tree along the path of unmaking stood like a petrified thought, tall, symmetrical, carved from a strange blue stone that seemed to drink sound. The leaves above were panes of translucent black glass, fluttering without wind, whispering fragments of language none of them knew. When the glass leaves fell, they shattered without sound, and from the fragments grew shadows shaped like children. Aldric traced the runes on his chest absent-mindedly. The map had gone quiet. No pulses. No shifts. The cartographic veins that once guided him through fractured realities had gone dormant, as if even the map refused to chart this place. I don't like this, Brockries muttered, the first to speak in hours. His breath steamed despite the stillness. This place is hollow, like it remembers dying. Sabrine reached toward one of the falling leaves, but Ethoria's hand stopped her. Don't. The glass dreams, she warned, her voice taut with something more than fear. And dream things, bite. From far ahead, the path twisted sharply, jagged like torn skin, and widened into a clearing. In its center floated a monolith of inverted light, casting anti-shadows across the ground. No base. No anchor. Just a dark, hovering wound in space. Aldric stepped forward. The map on his chest flickered once. Then twice. A third pulse, and it burned. He fell to his knees, gripping his ribs, breathless as the runes twisted under his skin, forming a new symbol. A spiral. Unfamiliar. Ancient. A mark of passage, Kaelin whispered. Something knows we're here now. Above them, something immense stirred within the clouds, though there were no clouds. And no sky. Chapter 2, The Herald of Lantern Teeth. The wind returned with a scream. It didn't howl, it chanted. Fragments of a language older than stars and more recent than memory. Lanterns, dozens of them, flickered to life around the clearing, dangling from nothing, glowing green and gold like will-o-wisps embalmed in flame. And then, it appeared. From behind the monolith drifted the herald. 10 feet tall, draped in robes stitched from tethered shadows, its body was not flesh but woven darkness. No face. Just a mask of jagged bone and rusted metal, fused like broken wings. Teeth. The mask was all teeth. Its voice was all lanterns. Children of the thornless path, it intoned, each word echoed 3 times, past, present, future. You cross into the nameless veil, where memory drowns and names are currency. What is your worth? None answered. Kalen stepped forward, glowing feathers rising from his shoulders like defensive instincts half returned. We seek the daughter of flame, he said. And the child of bone. The herald's lanterns dimmed. And what will you pay to wake what sleeps beneath the echo vaults? Truth, Aldric said. His voice trembled, not with fear, but recognition. We will pay with truth. The herald turned its gaze upon him, or seemed to. No eyes. Only weight. Aldric's skin crawled with fire as the runes twisted again, this time forming a gate etched in mirrored flame across his stomach. Then the vault shall open. The earth beneath the monolith split with a sound like a bone harp breaking. A stairway unfurled downward, stone steps woven from fossilized nerves and moss-covered teeth. The herald stepped back into shadow, its lanterns retreating. No light survives below. Only memory. Only price. The group stared at the staircase, wind at their backs now, whispering like a warning from gods too old to intervene. Evelyn took the first step down. Then let us pay. Chapter 3, The Echo Vaults. The stairwell coiled like a serpent swallowing itself. Each step resonated with something not quite sound, a pulsing pressure that reverberated in the sinuses, the blood, the teeth. They descended for hours, or seconds, or days, time disobeyed reason here. The air grew thick, damp, tasting of iron and memory. Faint whispers clung to the walls, lost arguments, unfinished prayers, names once shouted in battle and now reduced to breathless static. Aldric stopped first. His fingertips brushed the wall, and recoiled. It was skin. Not stone, not bone. The vault walls were wrapped in living flesh stretched tight across an unseen structure, stitched with ink-dark veins. Beneath the surface, movements. Muscle spasms. Twitching pulses. Whispers. The vault is alive, Sabrine whispered. It remembers everyone who entered, and never left. A room opened ahead, spherical and vast. A cathedral-sized space made of mirrored tissue, held aloft by columns shaped like screaming angels caught mid-crucifixion. In the center levitated a vast neural lattice, veins of bioluminescent energy webbing outward in recursive spirals. It beat like a heart. And within that pulse, memory. Evelyn approached the edge, peering into the suspended lattice. Reflections moved inside, visions. Not hers. Not yet. Then, her mother. Young. Weeping. Holding Evelyn's infant body over a frost-covered cradle, murmuring an apology that had never been spoken. Another pulse, Kalen's wings, ripped from his shoulders by celestial chains forged in betrayal. Another, Brockry's, kneeling before a forge buried in his childhood home, the sound of his sister screaming in the next room. A scream he ignored. The vault wasn't just a prison of memory. It was a judge. And now, it wanted more. A voice erupted from nowhere. A child's voice. Piercing and ancient. Name yourselves. Or be named. Aldric's tattoos burned to life. Each of them, in turn, spoke their names. The vault recorded each syllable. It twisted the echoes into woven strands of truth and pain, threading them into the lattice above. Once spoken, their names no longer belonged to them. And the vault opened further. Chapter 4, Blood upon the Mirror Sky. They emerged not into a room, but a realm. The echo vault had ruptured into what could only be described as a sky of mirrors, inverted, fractured, hanging like broken constellations above an endless plain of glass. Stars flickered in the wrong places. The horizon bent in an impossible arc, curving downward toward infinity. Each of them cast not one reflection, but 3. The first showed them as they had been. Scarred, flawed, unmade by loss. The second showed them as they feared to become. Hollow. Hungry. Alone. The third? The third refused to hold shape. It wavered. Shifted. As if the future had yet to decide what mask to wear. "Behold the mirror sky," Euphoria murmured. Her voice was cracked with awe. "This is where the world chooses what not to remember." As they stepped across the reflective plane, the mirror beneath their feet rippled. And from the ripples rose reflections. Each a doppelganger. A mockery. Sabrine's wore a porcelain mask carved with smiles, but the hands were soaked in blood that dripped upward. Brockery's reflection was half metal, mouth sewn shut with chain links, eyes burning with silent blame. Evelyn's mirror self hovered, not walked, cloaked in black frost, lips sewn into an eternal kiss of silence. Kaelin's bore no face at all. Only light. And fire. A divine horror too bright to behold. They drew weapons. Steel clashed with possibility. Aldric did not raise his blade. Instead, he knelt and spoke his reflection's name aloud. It stopped. Shivered. Cracked. The others followed, screaming truths into their mirrored selves. Words became fire. Confession became blade. And the reflections shattered, each one becoming mist, then memory, then dust. Above, a mirror fractured. A light fell through. Not sunlight. A feather. White. Burning at the edges. Still falling. Kaelin stepped forward and caught it. "It's time," he said. "For what?" Evelyn asked. Kaelin looked up. The mirror sky rippled again, this time forming a gate of wings. For judgment. Chapter 5, Gate of Wings, Chamber of Ash. The gate was not made of metal or stone. It was made of wings. Dozens, hundreds, of outstretched wings layered together, some skeletal, others feathered in embered gold, obsidian black, or luminous white. They moved gently, as if breathing. Between their folds shimmered light that defied direction, pulsing with the heartbeat of a distant star. Kaelin stood before it, feather in hand, his face unreadable. The fallen quill had fused into his palm, veins of starlight spreading up his wrist and into his chest. His breath had grown shallow. Quiet. "This is a judgment door," he said finally. "It does not open with strength. Only surrender." Sabrine stepped beside him, her hand brushing the gate. The feathers recoiled, then whispered. In a voice only she heard, "You danced with death beneath moons of ice. You lit the pyre. Are you ready to burn again?" She didn't answer. Her silence was enough. One by one, the others approached. Evelyn wept without knowing why. Brockrey's hammer turned to ash in his grip. Euphoria knelt, head bowed, her twin shadows merging behind her into wings not her own. And Aldric. He bled. Lines of ink spilled from his chest as if the map itself rejected the next path. But he stepped forward all the same, placing his palm to the gate's center. The wings parted. Beyond was a chamber of ash. Not gray. Not dead. But red gold ash, alive, floating, burning at the edges. It clung to skin, clothing, memory. The walls curved like ribs of a god fallen sideways. And at the center stood a throne. Made of bones that weren't dead. The bones moved. Twitched. Whispered. Upon the throne sat a woman of impossible age. Hair like soot, skin like carved dusk, her eyes weeping steady trails of silver tears that never struck the ground. Her breath stirred the ash. "You who were old names," she spoke, voice a chime of shattering glass, "have come to barter flame for forgetting. What would you give? To cross the final veil?" Kaelin stepped forward. "I remember too much," he whispered. "Take it." The woman on the throne reached up and pulled the memory from his mouth like a wisp of smoke. He collapsed. And the ash deepened. Chapter 6, The Bone-Filled Sky. They stood upon a sky that had fallen. The chamber cracked beneath them and the ash flowed upward. Gravity reversed, yet they did not fall. They drifted, pulled toward a dome of bone and starlight. The ceiling of the world, it seemed, had once been the spine of something greater, some dead thing that held the shape of heaven in its marrow. And now, it had awakened. The starlight bent. A shape formed from it. A colossus. Neither angel nor beast, it unfolded in silence, part mechanical, part divine. Its wings were rusted frameworks of forgotten promises. Its eyes were black holes. And in the hollow of its chest was a city, their city, reflected upside down, as though the creature carried Metropolis X in its ribcage. "Is that?" Evelyn began. "Yes," Ethoria whispered. "It's the first construct. The guardian between worlds. The watcher who forgot." Kalen rose unsteadily, the memory removed from him leaving his face strangely serene. "We're not here to destroy it," he said. "We're here to wake it." Aldric's runes shimmered again. One line, the old river path etched on his spine, lit with gold. "Then we must walk inside." The colossus bent forward. The bones groaned like mountains shifting. Its ribcage opened, revealing a staircase of white glass leading into the hollow city inside its chest. The wind held again, this time with words. "If you step in, you do not return unchanged." Aldric looked to his companions. "We haven't returned from anything we've done," he said. "Let's finish what we began." And they walked into the bones of heaven. Chapter 7, The Hollow City. Inside the chest of the Colossus, a city pulsed with no heartbeat. It was an inverted Metropolis X, rebuilt in memory, hollow and reassembled with divine error. Streets curled where they should stretch. Doors opened to mirrored skies. Buildings breathed, their walls made of fossilized language. The scent was familiar, ozone, ink, and candle wax long since burned away. It was beautiful. It was wrong. The hollow city remembered them. Every few steps, a voice whispered from the walls. "Aldric, child of ink and doubt, you never cried for your mother. Sabrine, when the pyre was lit, you looked away. Brockries, your fire quenched your sister's last breath. Kalen, you forgave yourself too soon." The city was not just stone, it was confession. Each building mirrored their sins. Their regrets lived here, framed in glass and petrified ash. They passed a cathedral shaped like a skull, its stained glass weeping molten stars. They passed a statue of Evelyn, except she had no face. Her face had been removed, left blank, a warning or a truth not yet realized. "I hate this place," Brockries muttered, knuckles white around his reforged hammer. "That's because it knows you," Ethoria replied, touching the wall. The stone pulsed beneath her palm, like a heartbeat beneath bone. Ahead, the road forked. To the left, a boulevard of vines and song, its flowers hummed in ancient Valhalla, promising rebirth and solace. To the right, a hallway of darkness shaped like ribs, the shadows deeper than reason. And between the two, stood a child. A girl, no older than 10. Pale. Eyes the color of dried roses. She wore a crown made of ash and spoke with a voice that was older than war. "You can go only one way," she said. "But first, you must bury the name you fear the most." Chapter 8, The Unnaming. The child led them to a courtyard where gravestones grew like thorns from the marble. No grass. No soil. Just cracked glass underfoot and dozens of empty headstones, each etched with a glowing symbol. One for each of them. Aldric stepped forward. His grave was already open. He peered into the pit. Inside, a copy of himself. Not dead. Not sleeping. Waiting. The same tattoos, but reversed. Eyes closed. Lips twitching as if whispering a name never meant to be heard. "What is this?" he asked the girl. "Your name. The true one. The one that binds you." He turned to the others. The same graves waited for them. Kalen stood frozen. "I already gave my name," he said. "No," the girl answered softly. "You gave what you believed it to be. Sabrine stepped to her grave. Inside, she saw not herself, but her father. His eyes wept fire. His chest was pierced with her dagger. Brockrys knelt by his stone. His grave held nothing. Only a mirror, and in the mirror, a forge gone cold. Evelyn's grave whispered. She didn't look inside. She only wept. And Ethoria, her grave shimmered with flame and frost. Two figures inside. A mother and a father. Both faceless. Both gone. You must bury the truth, the child said, to earn a false future. That is the price of walking the nameless veil. Aldric stepped back. If I bury who I am, do I forget? You remember differently. The group looked at each other. A choice. A final surrender. And one by one, they spoke their names into the graves. One by one, they covered them with ash. One by one, the stones cracked. And the path forward, now a burning bridge of bone and light, revealed itself beyond the hollow city. Behind them, their reflections screamed. Chapter 9, The Bridge of Bone and Light. The bridge shimmered like a nerve flayed raw. It extended across the nothingness where the hollow city had once cradled their memory. Now, only silence and the echo of burning names remained behind them. Before them, the bridge, bone lattice twisted with strands of living light, waited, suspended in void. With every step, it pulsed. Not beneath their feet, but within their chests. It responded not to pressure, but to presence. They crossed. Evelyn walked first, her cloak of frost trailing thin curls of mist in the airless dark. Her eyes, once wide with the cautious fire of a survivor, had grown harder, steel-rimmed in regret. Silver blonde hair braided with pieces of bone twisted in the faint ether wind. I feel like we're walking down someone's spine, she murmured, glancing down. You are, said Ethoria softly. This bridge is a memory. A body once revered, then forgotten. Now we walk its regrets. Brockrys let out a humorless chuckle. Even bones remember shame. Kalen followed in silence, his hand curled around the burning feather etched into his palm. His once golden hair had dulled to white ash, his once holy eyes flickered like dying stars. The loss of memory had changed him, not emptied him, but made him still. Watching. Calculating. And Aldric, trailing last, stared at his bare chest. The tattoos had gone wild. The map was no longer just a map, it was shifting, growing. Veins of ink curled over his throat and arms now, charting the passage of moments not yet lived. He gritted his teeth. They said this place unnames us. But I feel more known than ever. You are, Sabrine said beside him. Her auburn curls floated slightly in the strange gravity. You always were. You just never looked inward. Is that what you see, Dreamweaver? I see too much, she said, and touched his hand. And too little. That's the cost of visions. The bridge narrowed. Ahead, suspended in the air like a god caught mid-breath, floated a temple forged from pearl and bone. Spiraled towers rose from its surface like broken harp strings, each one humming a faint chord of some terrible song not meant for living throats. At the temple's gate stood a figure. Clad in robes of ruin. Eyes burning black. Face, familiar. Chapter 10, The Priest of Echoes. He waited beneath the threshold, barefoot on the bone glass. His hair was raven black, cascading down his shoulders in a knotted braid laced with tiny bells. His eyes, void swallowing color, held no warmth. And his skin was pale like a statue left too long in moonlight. Across his arms were sigils. Runic. Broken. Mirrored. When he spoke, his voice was not his own. Welcome, Ashwalkers. You have passed the unnaming and bled your truths. I am the last priest of echoes. And this, he swept his hand toward the pulsing gates, is the chamber of reckoning. Aldric's breath caught in his throat. He recognized the man. Not by name, but by blood. He had seen this man in one of the vault's memories, a glimpse of his father's face, long forgotten, twisted by ink and regret. "You're my brother," the priest said. "Yes. Once. Before I chose silence." Sabrine stepped forward, tense. "We were told no one survives the veil." "I didn't," said the priest, shrugging. "I just never stopped echoing." The chamber behind him opened, petals of memory unfolding like a blooming star. Inside, a hall of statues. Each figure carved from salt and grief. Each wearing the face of someone the companions had once loved, or lost. Brockrys choked at the sight of his sister, frozen mid-scream. Kalen recoiled at the wingless form of his former self, crucified on a sword of psalm. Ethoria clutched her chest as a molten version of her mother reached forward in blind agony. "These are not your dead," the priest said. "These are the parts you abandoned to survive." "We didn't come to mourn," Aldric growled. "We came to pass." The priest tilted his head. "Then speak the question." Aldric closed his eyes. "What is beyond the veil?" The statues cracked. The light dimmed. And behind them, the bridge began to dissolve. Chapter 11, The Chamber of Reckoning. The answer came in silence. No words. No visions. Only a pressure, like being seen from all directions at once by something too vast, too old, too intimate to name. The statues collapsed into dust that never fell, swirling instead into the high domed ceiling like ash seeking heaven. Aldric stepped into the chamber first. The moment his foot touched the floor, the hall changed. The walls breathed in time with his heartbeat. Symbols appeared across the ceiling, ancient runes etched in flame, blood, and memory. Kalen followed, and the chamber responded again. Feathers fell upward. A choir of lightless voices whispered his name in tones of reverence and warning. Sabrine, Evelyn, Ethoria, Brockrys, each entered, each became part of the room. Each shifted its shape. The last to enter was the priest. He did not pass the threshold. Instead, he extended a hand toward Aldric, palm up. "You must take it," he said. The key of becoming. In his palm. A shard of obsidian, no larger than a coin, but its center churned with stars. Aldric hesitated. "What does it open?" The priest's smile was as hollow as it was beautiful. "The next question." He placed it in Aldric's palm. The stone seared into his flesh, sank. Disappeared. Aldric gasped, the runes on his body igniting in a blazing chain reaction, crawling up his throat, over his jaw, into his eyes. His scream shook the chamber's foundation. His mind opened. And the chamber of reckoning shattered. Chapter 12, The Heart Mirror. When Aldric awoke, he was alone. No temple. No bridge. No companions. Only a room of polished obsidian. Seamless. Featureless. A sphere that reflected his image from all angles. And in the center of the room, floating, was the mirror heart. It beat. Not with blood, but with light. Each pulse sent waves of heat and sorrow through his body. It was shaped like no heart he had seen, but somehow, it was his. Carved from memory. Grown from ink. Alive. He reached toward it, and it recoiled. "You fear yourself," a voice whispered. Not the priest. Not the chamber. It was his voice. His deeper self. The part buried beneath the map, beneath the name, beneath the blood. You cannot cross the nameless veil if you still carry what you were. Aldric breathed hard. His hand trembled. "I don't know what I am anymore." The mirror heart pulsed. "You are what you choose next." He stepped forward. The obsidian floor cracked. His runes peeled from his body like burning leaves. His name, written across his spine, hissed in the air, then disintegrated. The mirror heart accepted him. It opened. Inside, not light. Not darkness. A door. And behind it, voices. His friends. Still alive. Still waiting. He passed through. Chapter 13, The Vault of Names. When Aldric stepped through the Mirror Heart's door, he emerged into a space that defied architecture. There were no walls, only shelves. Endless rows of bone-colored shelves stretching into a fog that glowed with the same amber light as a dying sun. Upon each shelf rested a single item, not books, not scrolls, but tongues, fleshy, silent, preserved in thin ribbons of smoke. Each one bore a tattoo. A name. Evelyn stood in the aisle nearest to him, a tongue cupped in her gloved hand. "This place remembers every name that was ever taken," she said. "Even the ones we tried to forget." Aldric nodded slowly. "This is the Vault of Names." Sabrine emerged from the far end, her eyes red from weeping. "I found my mother's name," she whispered. "It wasn't the name I knew her by. It wasn't kind." Brockry stomped down the aisle behind her, visibly shaken. "I found mine. The real one. The one my clan gave me before the forge and the fire." His voice cracked. "I buried it in coal when I was 10. It's still warm." Kalen stood beside a shelf of mirrors, each one reflecting a different version of his face. "I haven't looked," he said. "I'm afraid of what I'll find. Afraid it won't be me anymore." Ethoria was silent. She held no tongue. She had no shelf. "I have never had a name," she said at last. "I was born in the time between. My mother wept, and my father fell. I was not named, I was sent." Aldric walked to the center of the vault. There, hanging above an altar made of weeping masks, floated a spiral. It was made of names. Spoken names. Forgotten names. Banned names. Names written in languages only the dead remember. The spiral turned. "Do we take them back?" Evelyn asked. Aldric stepped closer. "No," he said. "We give them away." And with that, he reached into his chest, where the mirror heart had once pulsed, and pulled forth a single thread of ink. It shimmered. "Aldric." He whispered it once. Then released it. The spiral took it. The vault dimmed. And a new path, of glowing silver thorns, opened at the vault's far edge. Chapter 14, The Blooming Thorn. The silver path grew as they walked, blooming from the void like roses shaped of lightning and regret. The thorns curled toward them, never touching, always listening. Each footstep echoed with a memory, sounds they hadn't spoken aloud in years. Evelyn's first lie. Brockry's first oath. Kalen's first betrayal. Sabrine placed a hand to her temple and winced. "The path is reading us." "It has always been," Ethoria replied, tracing a thorn with a fingertip. "This place is not made of stone. It's made of us." Ahead, the path coalesced into a gate woven from vines of solid shadow. In its center burned a seal, a red eye surrounded by 8 broken keys. A voice issued from the gate itself. "You come unmade. You carry no name. No burden. No origin. You may pass." The vines unraveled. Beyond the gate, a garden, but not of plants. It was a graveyard of stars. Constellations hung from twisted branches. Planets spun like fruit. A black sun bled above, frozen mid-collapse. In the center stood a throne made of broken oaths. And upon it sat, the unseen queen. Her body was veiled in shifting tapestries of ink and bone. Her crown was stitched from petals of forgotten tongues. Her hands did not move. Her eyes did not open. But she knew they were there. "I have waited," she said. The sound was not a voice, it was the hush before a scream. Chapter 15, The Throne Without Witness. She didn't blink. She didn't breathe. She didn't rise. And yet, the unseen queen filled the realm with a presence so vast it pressed against their lungs, stretched time into slow fractures, and bent the starlight around their bones. Her throne, if it could be called such, was sculpted from ancient vows turned brittle, broken promises, undone rituals, sundered pacts between gods and mortals. They whispered as she sat upon them. Each oath was a voice, and together, they made a storm. Sabrine dropped to one knee. "Is she a goddess?" Evelyn asked, voice trembling. "No," Kaelin murmured, fists clenched at his sides. "She's worse." Aldric stepped forward. His bare chest still glowed faintly from the vault of names. The runes on his body had become faint scars, like old wounds from wars he hadn't yet fought. "We crossed the veil," he said to the queen. "We gave up our names, our pasts. We came to finish what was written." The queen's head tilted. Her face remained obscured beneath a veil of ink. But her mouth moved, barely. "No one finishes the nameless veil," she said, and her voice was the sound of a book closing inside a coffin. "You only pass it. Or you remain." The others drew closer, forming a half-circle around Aldric. "What do you want of us?" Brockries asked, his voice ragged with growing dread. "What do you fear most?" the queen answered. Behind them, the garden groaned. Stars fell from their branches like fruit bruised by grief. The ground cracked. From it rose mirrors, again. But these were not reflections. Each mirror held an alternate self. Possible selves. Twisted. Evolved. Some glorious. Some monstrous. One of Evelyn walked upon fire and sang the world to ruin. One of Kaelin had become a silent god. One of Aldric wore a crown of living ink, alone on a world of corpses. "These are not illusions," said the queen. "They are invitations." Ithoria's voice was steady. "And the cost?" "Your freedom. Your choice." Aldric exhaled, stepping between the mirrors. They trembled at his passing. "We've given everything already," he said. "Now you give us truth." For the first time, the unseen queen stood. When her veil fell away, there was no face. Only a mirror, and within it, all of them reflected together, fused into one being. One light. One darkness. She raised a hand made of countless fingers. And pointed. "To pass, you must walk into the reflection not of who you are, but of who you would kill to never become." The mirrors pulsed. Time began to scream. And the stars burned anew. Chapter 16, Through the Self That Should Not Be. They stood in silence before their doom-shaped reflections. Not illusions. Not metaphor. Themselves, if the wrong choice had been made. Each mirror shimmered with a version of fate that twisted the soul, what they could become, had almost become, or secretly wanted to be. Aldric saw himself atop a throne of ink and bone, his mapped flesh stretched into parchment, cities etched across his ribs. A god of control. A tyrant of predestination. Around his neck hung a chain of names, each once a friend. Kaelin's mirror showed a prophet of ashen silence, his wings gone, replaced with iron filaments wired into his skull. He drifted above a congregation of the dead, his voice the final commandment of a broken sky. Evelyn trembled before her reflection, a plague queen dressed in frost and rot, her breath toxic with despair. She had burned every sanctuary, turned lovers to statues, danced with venom in her veins. She smiled. And that was the worst of it. Brockries' mirror held no flame, only a hollow husk of a man who had reforged his heart into a war engine. He was rage made flesh, his hammer now fused to his arm, his eyes blind to everything but conquest. Ithoria looked into hers and saw herself, vanished. Replaced. Her reflection was a creature of lightless void, half phoenix, half specter, unbound from time, devouring both prophecy and history. It wore her voice like a mask. Its wings, composed of ghostly quills, wrote the world out of existence. Sabrine didn't speak. Her mirror was silent. Her hands shook. Then, one by one, they stepped into their worst selves. And the pain began. The world flipped inside out. Every bone screamed. Every memory buckled. The mirror swallowed their truths, feeding on guilt and fear. For what felt like years, but lasted only seconds, they became the versions of themselves they most feared. Not as puppets, but fully conscious. Aldric ruled an empire. Felt its weight. Felt it crack. Watched it burn. Kaelin preached to shadows. They obeyed. Then devoured. Evelyn danced on plague winds. Kissed kingdoms to ruin. Brockries razed the mountain cities. Felt the warpath in his spine. Euphoria rewrote existence, and saw herself disappear with every line. They screamed. And the veil screamed back. Then, light. Like a door slamming shut in the dark, the mirrors shattered. The pain ended. They fell to their knees in a circle of silver sand, the unseen queen gone. In her place, a new gate. Not carved. Not built. Grown. From their own footprints. Its shape was impossible, part spiral, part eye, part wound. It pulsed with their voices, past and future, braided into music. No one spoke for a long time. Then Aldric stood. "We're through," he said. "But we didn't win." Sabrine stood beside him. "We didn't lose, either." Kaelin nodded. The price was knowing. They crossed the threshold. And the veil closed. Chapter 17, The Garden After Time. The gate opened, not into a road, or a hall, or a realm, but into a garden suspended in silence. It floated on nothing. Grew in every direction at once. Roots wound through stars. Petals bloomed in reversed gravity. The soil was made of words, fragments of lost languages pressed into moss. The air shimmered with the smell of burnt honey, stormlight, and soil after fire. This place had no sun. It had something older, the heartbeat of creation. Evelyn stepped onto a lily of bone glass and watched it ripple outward. "We're not in time anymore," she whispered. "We're not even in memory." Aldric's chest glowed faintly again, though the map had long since vanished. "This is what the veil hides," he said. "Not a throne. Not a power. But this." Brockries looked up. "The roots touch constellations." "And the constellations blink," Euphoria murmured. "They're alive." Kaelin moved through a path of floating vines that pulsed with thought. One brushed his shoulder, and he heard a voice. Not from the vine, but from his childhood. His mother's last words, spoken in reverse. "It remembers us." The group moved in reverence. They passed a pond of frozen breath, where ghosts whispered through glass reeds. They passed a tree that grew keys instead of fruit, each key marked with one of their names, written backwards. Then they reached the center. A spiral of glass thorns encircled a still pool, and in the pool floated a single seed, glowing white, shaped like an eye, pulsing with a soft, irresistible hum. Sabrine stepped forward. "This is it," she said. "The end, or the beginning." Aldric knelt beside the pool. "The seed," he said. "It's waiting for someone to plant it." "Where?" asked Kaelin. "This place is nowhere." Brockries pointed behind them, back the way they came. But there was no way back. The veil had sealed. And then, the seed pulsed once. Twice. And rose. A figure stepped from the shimmer. A woman. Barefoot. Her eyes were silver flame. Her body wore both feathers and frost. Her voice, when it came, was music woven from centuries. "I am the verdant warden," she said. "You have crossed the unnaming. You have passed through judgment. You have come where no name may remain." She turned to Aldric. "You are the vessel. You are the map. The question is, are you the root?" And then the seed drifted into his chest. Aldric's breath left him. His back arched. The sky cracked. The garden began to tremble. Chapter 18, The Rootborn Rebellion. The garden shuddered. The moment the seed merged with Aldric's chest, the garden after time transformed, from stillness to awakening. petals turned inward. Roots uncoiled like serpents. The air filled with a rising hum, part music, part alarm. Aldric's veins lit with silver-green light. His irises bloomed with fractal vines. His breath came in ragged bursts as a living map etched itself across his skin again, only this time, it wasn't ink. It was root. Aldric? Sabrine called, reaching for him. His voice was deeper now, touched by wind and soil. I can feel them, all of them. Every ancestor who dared to question their fate. Every ghost that tried to plant something new in the ashes. Euphoria stepped back, eyes wide. He's becoming a Rootborn. What's that? Evelyn asked. The Verdant Warden spoke, circling the pool. The Rootborn are those who take memory and grow futures from it. They are not kings. They are not gods. They are fractures made fertile. Suddenly, the ground beneath them cracked open, revealing shadows wrapped in chainmail and moss, figures rising from the roots, their eyes pulsing like dying embers. The last rebellion never truly died, Brockries whispered. They were buried. They became the roots, said Kaelin grimly. And now they rise. Across the horizon of this floating biome of myth, the Rootborn rebellion stirred. Their bodies were twisted with growth, armor fused with bark, weapons overgrown with creeping vines, teeth sprouting leaves. Aldric stood tall, the new map glowing. They remember injustice. They remember the gods, Sabrine added, and their silence. The warden nodded. And now, they remember you. The Rootborn fell to one knee. Aldric swayed. I didn't ask for this. They didn't either, said the warden. But the world breaks, and someone must plant the wound. From behind the trees of song and glass came another figure. Not twisted. Not crowned. Masked. Black metal. A single slit for eyes. Robes like bleeding paper. And in their hands, a mirror blade. Euphoria hissed. That's the Cartographer of Endings. The warden's face darkened. The seat brought life, she said, but it also woke the crows. Chapter 19, The Cartographer's Blade. The figure moved like smoke through ink. The Cartographer of Endings walked forward in silence, its footsteps stirring no sound from the garden floor. Wherever it passed, petals curled inward, vines recoiled, and the starlight above flickered as if held hostage by some unseen gravity. Its face was hidden behind a mask of obsidian steel, etched with shifting runes that could not be looked at directly. The blade it held was not metal, but reflected possibility, a long curve of polished nothingness, in which one could see their own face if they dared. Not as it was, but as it would be, should they fall. Evelyn raised her blade instinctively. Is it here to kill Aldric? No, whispered the Verdant Warden. It's here to unright him. The Cartographer's blade began to hum. Not with magic. Not with malice. With purpose. Aldric stepped forward, chest still glowing with the buried root map, now fractalizing into branches across his arms and neck. If it wants me, he said, it should know, I've already died 1,000 ways. The Cartographer tilted its head. A sound came, not a word, not a voice, but a negative of speech, as if something had once been spoken here and was now being devoured in reverse. Then it struck. The garden reeled as time bent around the arc of the mirror blade. A fountain of blossoms froze mid-air. Sabrine pulled Aldric back just as the blade passed through where his name would have been, had he still carried one. You can't fight this thing with steel, Kaelin shouted, wings forming from memory. It cuts destiny itself. Then we give it something it can't predict, said Brockries. He stepped forward and shouted a song. Low. Crude. Dwarvish. Forgotten by almost all. The garden echoed. The vines writhed in reply. The ground answered. The Rootborn began to chant, drawing their axes and relics of rusted resistance. They surged around the Cartographer in a circle of defiance. The Verdant Warden stepped forward and placed her hand on Aldric's chest. The blade cannot unwrite what has not yet been dreamed. Aldric's eyes flared green-white. He charged. The battle was not physical. Not entirely. The blade carved through memory, through futures, through dream logic. But Aldric struck back, not with fists, but with story. With the living root of possibility growing from his map-born soul. The two forces met. And the cartographer's mask cracked. A face beneath. Not monstrous. Not inhuman. Familiar. Aldric staggered. That's... The cartographer gasped once. Then shattered into a storm of names, scattered into the soil. And silence returned. The verdant warden knelt where the cartographer had stood and retrieved the shattered blade. This was made from a god's regret, she murmured. And now it returns to root. She offered it to Aldric. Plant it. He knelt. Buried the blade in the soil. And where it fell, a tree began to grow. Chapter 20, The Tree of Second Futures. It did not grow like any tree they had ever seen. The moment Aldric planted the shattered blade, the soil shivered, singing in languages older than time. The seed of steel, regret, and forgotten destiny sank deep, and in its place, a tree of light and root erupted skyward. It grew in silence. It grew in breath. Not upward alone, but inward, through dimensions, through history, through grief. Its bark was polished obsidian carved with thousands of flickering names. Some belonged to the Rootborn, some to future rebels, some to children who had not yet been imagined. Branches stretched in constellations. Leaves fluttered like pages, each inscribed with a memory that had never happened. The Tree of Second Futures. Aldric stood beneath it, his palms stained with light. He wept, but not out of sorrow. It was the ache of remembering things that had not yet come true, of tasting a world not doomed by prophecy, but grown wild by choice. The verdant warden placed a hand to the tree's trunk. Her face softened. It remembers what the gods tried to forget. Brockrys pressed his brow to the bark. This could change everything. This is a weapon. No, said Ethoria, stepping beside him. This is a promise. And promises are more dangerous. The tree bent. A single leaf fell. Aldric caught it. Etched on it, a name. Not his. A daughter's. He turned to Sabrine, heart pounding. She had already seen it. It's not now, she said quietly. But it will be. The sky cracked. A bell rang across the garden, not forged from metal, but memory. The warden's eyes widened. The Gate of Unspoken Ends is opening. Chapter 21, The Gate of Unspoken Ends. At the edge of the blooming cosmos, beyond the reach of the tree's light, a void stirred. Not dark. Not empty. It was a silence that devoured language, a chasm where names went to die. And from its center, a gate unfurled, like the eye of a god opening after centuries of blindness. It wasn't made of stone or steel. It was made of thresholds, a spiraling structure formed from every door never opened, every choice never made, every path feared and abandoned. Each step forward required not courage, but surrender. The verdant warden bowed her head. This is where I leave you. Kaelin turned. You're not coming? She shook her head. I was born of the first seed. I am bound to the garden. But you, she placed her hand over Aldric's heart. You carry the map of everything that was, and the root of what might be. One by one, the companions approached the gate. Sabrine whispered, do we know where this leads? Aldric smiled faintly. No. Brockry smirked. Perfect. The gate pulsed. As they passed through, visions clung to them, whispers of futures unresolved. Evelyn standing atop a dead moon with flame in her eyes. Kaelin drowning in a sea of wings. Ethoria giving birth to a phoenix made of names. Aldric holding a blade made of stars, his body wrapped in vines and voices. And then... silence. The gate sealed behind them. Only the tree remained. Its leaves rustled once, then stilled. And in the sky above, the stars began to rearrange themselves. Chapter 22, The Sky That Sings Like Bones. They emerged in silence. The world beyond the Gate of Unspoken Ends was not a world, it was a wound, raw and stinging, stretched across the fabric of reality. The ground pulsed like tendon beneath skin. Trees twisted into sigils. The wind carried no air, only the faint echoes of prayers that were never answered. Above them, the sky was a cathedral of shifting bone-white constellations. They moved, clashing gently like wind chimes, but their music was wrong. Each note was a name lost to time. Aldric staggered forward, the root veins on his arms glowing like forge embers. This place is made from the skeleton of forgotten futures, said Ethoria, her voice quiet. Brockries touched a nearby tree and drew back his hand. It bleeds, he muttered. It's alive. A massive ribcage, the size of a castle, jutted from the horizon, half buried in soil made of crumbled dreams. Evelyn raised her scope and whispered, "That's no ruin. That's a corpse. A god died here." Kaelin nodded. And its breath built the sky. Lightning cracked in the distance, not yellow, but violet. And beneath it, a city of twisted spires slowly emerged, floating between dimensions. "Welcome," said a new voice, deep as thunder and delicate as falling ash, to the Mausoleum of Futures. Chapter 23, The Mausoleum of Futures. The speaker was a figure clad in a mantle of glass and starlight. Their skin was etched in runes, their eyes hollowed into shimmering pools. They called themselves Nameless, keeper of what might have been. They led the group through the mausoleum, a city where every building was a memorial to a future that failed. Streets curved back into themselves. Doorways led to rooms full of static. Towers hummed with the sound of unborn children and collapsed timelines. "This is where time goes to grieve," Nameless explained. "You carry a map made of roots. That is, dangerous here." "Why?" asked Sabrine. "Because roots seek growth," Nameless said, pausing before a column inscribed with Aldric's own face. "And here, nothing should grow." The column depicted him wearing a crown of rot and fire. Aldric touched it, and fell into a vision. He stood in a throne room of thorns, his companions kneeling before him, eyes blank. The tree of second futures had overgrown every realm, suffocating choice beneath its vast canopy. He ruled not as a liberator, but as a gardener tyrant, pruning rebellions like weeds. When he gasped back to reality, Nameless said only, not prophecy. Possibility. Chapter 24, The Concord of Wounds. Deep in the mausoleum's heart lay the Hall of Wounds, a cathedral where time wept through stained glass scars. In its center, a circle of chairs, each one carved from broken oaths and promises undone. This was where the Concord would gather. Nameless summoned them, 12 beings from collapsed futures. Some wore armor fused to their flesh. Others flickered between identities. One was composed entirely of flame held in a cage of tears. "You must speak your purpose," said Nameless, "and they will judge it." Aldric stepped forward. His voice trembled. "I seek not to rewrite time," he said, "but to open it. To let the forgotten speak. To let the dead choose again." One of the Concord rose, a child with eyes older than suns. "Then you must bleed with us." They cut their palms, dripped blood into a basin of sand. Aldric joined them. So did each of his companions. The basin bloomed into a vortex of light. And from it, rose the concordant seed. "It is the final seed," Nameless said. "You may plant it, or destroy it." "Where?" asked Kaelin. Nameless pointed up, toward a new tear in the bone-sunk sky. "There." Chapter 25, The Spiral Horizon. The climb was endless. They ascended on a path of floating bones and glowing syllables, spiraling upward toward the rift in the sky. Around them, the stars wept. Comets weaved songs in silent harmony. Below, the mausoleum dimmed, folding into shadow. Above, the spiral horizon yawned open, a breach into the next world, or the next version of it. At the final step, they stood together. The concordant seed pulsed in Aldric's hand. Alive. Becoming. We don't know what lies beyond, said Sabrine, brushing tears from her cheek. We never did, said Evelyn. Kaelin nodded. That's the point. Euphoria looked to Aldric. You carry us. Whatever happens next, let it be alive. He stepped forward and cast the seed into the rift. Light exploded, not blinding, but revealing. They did not fall. They did not rise. They became something new. Epilogue, the breath between names. Somewhere, in a realm not yet written, a child opens her eyes. Her veins glow with root light. She hears voices in the wind, stories not yet told, names not yet given, truths not yet born. She steps into a garden that remembers her. And a tree bows.